Are we a mind? Are we a body? As expressed in sections 27 and 28 of Louis Pogemon's Philosophy, The Quest for Truth, René Descartes and Gilbert Ryle both believe that they have an answer for these questions. The former lived from 1596 to 1650 Common Era. Descartes was born and educated in France in the College of La Flèche, respectively. He took to soldiering before settling into writing philosophical works in Holland. Descartes begins by doubting everything he knows and perceives, and seeks to find what's true from that point through self-evident insight or reason. Gilbert Ryle was a philosopher of the 20th century. He lived from 1900 to 1976, and was educated at Oxford University, where he also taught. Kukai is our third perspective, one originating during the 9th century Common Era in the Iga Mountains of Japan, and the infancy of the worldview of Nimpo. Descartes begins by understanding that a person only understands anything outside of his person by his or her senses. That person may hear a conversation, see a rock, touch it, or touch a jello mold. In all cases, the senses that may be fooled either through presumptions, a misreading of the input, illusions, whether natural or planned, or hallucinations. Because of this inconsistency in our perceptions, we cannot trust that anything outside the self exists based upon their evidence alone. As to the self, it must exist to perceive these perceptions, as must the perceptions themselves be trusted to be real. Although it may sound backwards to say that perceptions are real, when we cannot say that physical objects are real. Descartes noted this irony when he wrote, "I know and understand more distinctly these things whose existence seems to me dubious, and which do not belong to me, than others of the truth from which I am convinced." Descartes continues that the mind, then, is the self. It is the thing which perceives, thinks, and wills. The body is the natural extension of the self into the physical. The mind only communicates within itself or through the body and its senses. Descartes uses the example of a piece of wax to show how we perceive. We know what it is because of its properties during the length of time we observe it. At room temperature, a chunk of beeswax is hard, might smell slightly of the flowers it was partly created from, have a particular shape, and on for all the senses. If we were to heat up the wax, its properties would change, as would our perceptions of those properties. In other words, these perceptions are reflections in our consciousness of what might be out there, and this changes along with the apparent changes in that. Luckily, we can begin to trust what we perceive in the physical world is most likely true, owing to Descartes' firm belief that God cannot be a deceiver. By knowing that all he perceives is real, he can believe that the person perceiving it, Descartes himself in his written example, is real as well. Descartes continues his model for the mind and body with the clause that the two must be separate. Of the faculties of the mind, memory, will, visualization, etc., none apply to the physical as well. The body also may be separated, such as the loss of a limb, without any apparent loss or division within mind. The mind is thinking and unextended into matter, and the body is unthinking and is itself the extension into matter. Thus, the complete model of a physical world where we can interact with each other and outside things, and a level of self or mind where each of us can observe, think, and react to the stimuli given to us in the physical. Gilbert Ryle took exception to the a priori logic that Descartes used to reach this model. He calls Descartes' arguments the official doctrine, as it had backed the thinking of professionals and laymen for at least 3 centuries. In fact, one could say that a modern materialist model, scientific ones included, rejection of non-physical causes for physical effects, rests within this official doctrine. Ryle argues on several points, the first of which puts into question the very methods Descartes used in his explorations. The French philosopher claimed through quiet, calm, drawn-out meditation, one could clearly understand the inner state of one's mind/self perfectly. Ryle dismisses that as an overly simplistic, as the workings of any one of our minds may be more or less clearly known based upon any number of environmental, psychological, or even other factors. More importantly, Ryle disagrees with Descartes' inclusion that there is a separation between the mind and body. Ryle considered this a category mistake. One of the examples given of this mistake is that of a foreign person visiting a university and being given a tour. He he would be shown the school of medicine, the school of this and that, and various other administration buildings. Afterward, the person asks the guide, "Where then is the university building?" The mistake, of course, was in thinking that the university itself would be one more building, or a component part of the whole college. Descartes' model, or a ghost in the machine, if you will, makes a similar mistake. All human beings' doings cannot be described in purely mechanical terms. Some words describe what must be mental processes. These processes, thinking, amazement, etc., similarly cannot be used to describe the mechanical parts of human life, so they must describe a different category of human experience. But there need not be any separation between the two. We don't pause when switching our mental focus from our inner monologues to the stimuli of a stubbed toe, for example. And this example also illustrates the permeable nature of this supposed barrier between mind and body. A physical cause, stubbed toe, creates a perceptual effect in mind, the experience of pain. This will most likely be the mental cause of other mental effects, swearing at oneself, for example, as well as other physical ones, moving the foot. This reciprocal nature of cause and effect between the two worlds shatters the official doctrine's separation of mind and body. Ruyle leaves us with a similar but more flexible model of said mind and body. Kukai, our Japanese philosopher, expressed that our lives are contained within the here and now. Also that the enlightened state of Buddhahood may be realized within a lifetime and within one's own body. This state could be reached by meditation and self-knowledge, and also by using those tools to eliminate the inner problems within the mind. But mind and body, according to Kukai, although differing, were simply extensions of each other. The 5 elements would be categorical mental temperaments or flavors to be adopted at will. The same elements in a physical world describe the states of matter: solid, liquid, gaseous movement, and pure energy. Wind and wood would mean gases and solids as well as meaning their psychological counterparts. What remained the same was the meaning behind them, described in short by the names of the element itself. The two have no definite separation point and grow out of each other, a continuous whole spectrum of human life. Kukai therefore agrees and extends Ruyle's ideas to the point that one of the things which must be done away with is that self-deceptive illusion that the body and the mind are separated. What Kukai knew, Ruyle intimated, and Descartes missed, is that if there is interaction between the physical bodies, it happens in the framework of an outside world. Then there must be a mental world outside our own centers of consciousness. This mental world is the medium through which the collective unconscious acts, and through which the occasional reported act of telepathy or great intuition must be manifested. Of course, I agree with Kukai and with Ruyle that these need not be separated at all. But as the body is a differing extension of the mind, so must be the mental and physical worlds. One and the same, yet differing, overlaying yet each other, if you will. The mental and physical have been shown to be able to cause effects within the other, but this flies in the face of the untested theory at the heart of the scientific materialist model of the world. Despite a study giving empirical evidence to this in the early 90s, the British scientific journal Nature described it as the best candidate for burning of the year. Of course, you can get a scientist to start sputtering with contempt if you try to argue the basic tenets of his or her worldview. There will be more dogma than intellect in his or her responses. In conclusion, Kukai and Ruyle have exercised Descartes' ghost in the machine. We are more than the sum of our causes and effects, and the two worlds of matter and mind are so closely linked as to be parts of the same whole. By removing our artificial barriers, our models again begin to resemble our actual experience more closely, and we are assured of their greater accuracy to the